Hey guys, it's Rush. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. This video today, I've got something very special for you. This is a controller overview, and this particular pad is the FIGHTWEDGE version 2. This controller is not made by a manufacturer, a big company. It's made by one person. Absolutely insane. So this individual, Banana Faction, has created this pad themselves from scratch using 3D printing techniques. So it is a fight pad, has 6 buttons on the face, 4 shoulder buttons, and it has a D-pad. Now the D-pads I won't talk about too much, but there is this D-pad that slides around, and there's another D-pad you can change it out for this one, which is a more traditional style D-pad. So I'll talk about that a little later. Has a LED display as well, which we'll see when I connect it to the computer. But it is quite small, so its design was based on the 8-bit DOE, the M30 controller, hence the small size. It does thicken out at the top, but it's quite narrow at the bottom. All of the buttons can be mapped individually. Connectivity to your device is accessed via USB Type-C. There is no lead included with the device, but I've just plugged in any old USB Type-C into my PC and it's worked without any issues at all. It is a PC controller, so it's not specifically built for Xbox or PlayStation, but you can connect those devices via a converter. In the product description, it mentions regarding converters that the Mayflash Magic Boots converter is the most reliable one. The Brook FGC, there's been mixed reviews, so we're not 100% sure if that is the one to go for. So just some forewarning if you do plan to use this on Xbox or PlayStation. So in terms of shape and feel in more detail, as I mentioned, it's quite a small controller. So my palms don't feel very secure around the controller. But in terms of the thickness, my fingers do wrap around it quite well. And my thumbs do sit quite naturally right in the middle of the 6 buttons and on the D-pad. And if you look at the alignment, I talk about this quite a lot. The alignment is right through the middle. So the placement of the D-pad in terms of the 6 buttons is really, really good. The buttons use micro switches, so keyboard micro switches, all of them, including the shoulder buttons and the D-pad itself as well. The buttons are large in size. I'd say they're the same size as the Hori Fighting Commander, which I like. I like big buttons. They're quite soft to the press. Not much noise to them, but they are quite soft. I say how soft they are, but the amount of travel, for me, I quite like it. They're quite punchy. I've got to press significantly to make sure I press it down, but I don't have to press hard to get it down, if that makes sense. The spacing as well, they're quite close. I'd say X, Y, A, B are spaced nicely, but the O and the square, the circle and the square, they're a little closer. So the spacing is a little bit out with those two compared to them. So I'd say, if I was being super picky, I'd say they need to be spaced out a bit more, maybe bring them down a bit, and then there's more space between those rows. But that is quite close. So yeah, if you look at that, you can see pressing those two at the same time is something that could happen. It's quite a significant difference between there and there. But it's good. I like the design. I like the idea. I like the shape. I like the way they feel. They've got a little lip on them as well. It's very hard. Oh, you can see that. Yeah, they're tapered basically, so you do notice that, and that's a nice little touch as well. The shoulders, they are all shoulder buttons. There's no triggers. There's no paddles. They are just flat, which is nice, and they're wide, which again is really good. If I was to critique the shoulder buttons, I'd say you've got this space here. I would like to have seen the buttons extend to that point, just so that if you're trying to clip them from the edge of the controller, you'd get them, but you've got to lean over a bit more to get them, which isn't bad. It's not a problem, but I'd say it's not a waste of space, but I think it would have made sense. It would have been more flush if they reached the edge, but I do think being able to touch them from the corners of the pad at the top would have been better. There's a significant space between the back row and the front row. There is a decent amount of space, not much, but I'd say it's enough space considering the size of them. The thickness is great, really, really good. And they feel just like the face buttons. They have significant amount of travel. It's not super sensitive, but they're not like stiff. You just tap them down and they go down with ease, but you have to make sure you move them down. So I like that as well. I think the buttons feel really nice on this controller. So the D-pad design itself is very interesting. So it protrudes out quite a lot, as you can see there. It follows the same design philosophy as the controller shape and the buttons on the face of the controller, where it has a tapered edge. So the tapered edge makes it look bigger than it actually is, But the actual face of it, if you see that disc, that circle here, that is the face of the D-pad itself. If you look head on, that is what you'll be pressing. But it has a recess as well, so your thumb can sit within the recess of the D-pad. So it is quite small, but I think it suits the controller design, and it doesn't seem too bad. Like I prefer a bigger D-pad than this, but I do notice on bigger D-pads, when it gets too big, you're prone to more misinputs because you're having to move your thumb a lot more. So there is a fine line between it being too big or too small. And the reason why it has the recess is because this D-pad, there are two D-pads that come with the controller. Now, I feel the recess suits this slider style D-pad. So this is very interesting. This is more reminiscent of a arcade stick. You know, I'm having to move the D-pad into different directions to get my inputs. And it's using a square gate. If you look very carefully, you can see the corners. See that? It uses a square gate. So for my movement, if I want to go back, I've got to lean back. If I want to do down back, I've got to lean into that corner. Down forward, lean into that corner. I want to go forward, I have to lean there. So you've got to lean into the corners, and where you're pressing up, down, left, right, you know, you can press those directions, but you can move a little bit if you're inaccurate. So this is an interesting D-pad. It's not really my preference because this is more, as I mentioned, more like a arcade stick. So I'm not really great on arcade sticks. So I'd say my execution is not as good on this style D-pad. But it's really nice to have that choice. If you're an arcade stick user and you want some sort of in-between house controller, so a controller that has an arcade stick style D-pad, then this is it. This is really interesting. And the more I used it, the more I got more comfortable with execution on it. Again, it's still not my preference, it's not my go-to, but you have that option. Banana Factory is kind enough to provide you with an Allen key, and the Allen key is used to access the innards of the control pad. But to get the faceplate off, you unscrew these three here, and the faceplate will just pull off, and you can replace it for this faceplate. This faceplate uses more of a traditional D-pad style where you lean on the edges of the D-pad to get your inputs. So let's change that out now. So that's the slider D-pad faceplate off, and it reveals the 4 switches on the inside to register your inputs. So as you press up, down, left, and right, what happens is on the back of the D-pad faceplate, the D-pad itself has this arm, and the arm will press down on those directions. And if you press diagonally, it will obviously press 2 switches at the same time with the diagonals to register the diagonal inputs. The thickness of the arm enables it to press 2 inputs at the same time, which is, it's a really interesting way to do it, but it works. It's really, really good. I'm very, very impressed. The way it's been designed, put together with the switches is very, very cool. So this is the other faceplate. So this is the more standard Fightpad style D-pad. It's secure in place in terms of there's no gate, but I can move it around to get my inputs. So as I'm pressing the D-pad down, you can see the arm moves. Now the thing with this is when I connect this to the controller, if I press up on this now, you can see it's going to press the switch at the bottom. I'm tapping up, but obviously it's pointing, the arm's pointing down. So you do have to reverse your inputs when you use this faceplate. That is the traditional style D-pad now connected to the controller. So it no longer slides from side to side. You have to press the face down. So that ring is where your thumb is going to be. You could place your thumb in the middle and do inputs like that, but I feel more comfortable pressing down on the ring. And I have to say, the amount of resistance on this D-pad is perfect. It's not super duper sensitive. I have the right level of feedback, and I do like the clickiness. Like I'm not a big fan of switches and micro switches, but I don't know. The D-pad has a nice crunch to it when I press it down. I like the feedback on it. As I mentioned, the size is quite small, but it feels really snappy, really quick. And if you compare the size to my favorite controller, the Hori Fighting Commander, the old one, the cross-shaped D-pad of the Hori Fighting Commander was about that size. So I personally feel like this is my most optimal and more preferred size. The Sega Saturn style D-pads, I always felt like they were really, really good, but because of their size, I often felt that they were a little too sensitive. You didn't have much resistance in them because they were so big, and they would then loosen up over time as well. So I do think with experience, this is my preferred size. I do like this, and the feedback, like I said, it has, you do again have to press quite a bit to get your movement, similar to the shoulders, similar to the face buttons. But it's not bad. It doesn't mean your inputs are slow. It just means that you won't press it by accident, but you've got to press it hard enough to move. But the resistance is bang on. I really, really like the D-pad. Yeah, feels nice. And the build quality of this pad, I'd say it's very good. You know, you have to bear in mind that it is a 3D printed controller, so it does feel very plasticky. But given its design, the components used, and the size of it, it weighs in at 126 grams. The surface has this flat, matte surface. There's no texture to it. It's not glossy, just a standard flat surface. You can feel the layers of the 3D printing when you run your thumb or fingers down the edges of the tapered sides. If I run my thumb that way, I can feel the lines of the 3D printing, which is really cool. I don't know if you can catch it in the light, but you can see like the lines going this way. The video doesn't do it justice, but when I look at it in person, it looks like the lines are part of the design, which is really cool, but you can't really appreciate it on video. The buttons are solid. They don't have much movement to them, which is really nice. And the shoulder buttons, they don't move at all. They're really sturdy. They're very, very secure in place. So connecting the controller up, you can see the display lights up FIGHTWEDGE controller. And what's really cool is the display shows you your buttons. That's so cool. So you can see which direction you're pressing in. So I've obviously already switched the buttons around. So when using the traditional D-pad, up is up, down is down. So I've set the switches inside to register that. But yeah, you get a little heads up display as well. So if you think you're getting misinputs, if you don't see the thing light up on here, then that's your fault. To make configuration changes to the controller, you have to go into a configuration mode. The easiest way to do that is to hold this button here and then plug your controller in, and it will go into that mode there. Once it's in that mode, you access a particular website, and that will take you to the controller configuration settings. So this is the interface for the software that the controller uses. You go to configuration, then pin mapping. This is what you want to use for reconfiguring the buttons. So all of the buttons are remappable, which is really nice. I'm using the more traditional D-pad style. So I flipped the down and the up here for pin 02 and pin 03. So this is the configuration I've used, so that pressing up and down on the more traditional D-pad counts as up and down. I've had to reverse them. So when it comes, it's already set for the arcade stick style, the slider style D-pad. So you have to change that if you swap them out. But there's a lot of configuration settings you can change from here. That's the only thing that I've changed. So in terms of how this pad feels in matches, particularly Street Fighter 6, the main drawback for me, and this is a personal thing, is the size of the pad. Because it's small, I don't feel like I have a good hold of the pad, so that will limit my execution just because of my preference. So it's not a fault of the controller itself. If you prefer small pads, you'll be perfectly fine, but just my preference, I do like much bigger pads, ones where I can get my palms on them so that my palms are secure, my fingers and my thumbs won't be moving around so much. So that's probably my main criticism personally. But in terms of the functionality of the controller itself, the face buttons are fantastic. Great shape, great size. Takes a lot of misinput to get the wrong button. I think you can get wrong inputs because of those middle buttons, the middle row and the end buttons being so close together. But other than that spacing, I think they're perfectly fine. Just spacing those end buttons out a bit more would make it more uniform in terms of the button placement, as we discussed earlier. But the buttons are fine. The face buttons are great. Great size, great feedback, no issues at all. Shoulders, I think as I play matches, I think the size of the shoulders became more apparent. So being small in terms of their length, I noticed that quite a bit. And because I'm leaning over more to press them, it actually encouraged me more to sometimes miss press and get them both at the same time. I wouldn't get the wrong shoulder button, but I could sometimes, very occasionally, get both. So that is an input mistake on my end. That's just some adjustments getting used to the pad, but it stood out to me in my matches. So I think maybe having a slightly bigger gap between the shoulder buttons, but definitely extending them out. Exactly what I said earlier on the video. That would make them much easier to press. More surface area in terms of length, a bit more space in between them to avoid those misinputs would be really nice. Now, in terms of the D-pad feels very, very good. Now, why I say that is because when I want to get a quarter circle or a DP input, whether on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, I was getting them cleanly every single time. If ever I was getting a misinput, I felt like I was butchering the inputs. So I'll be honest, I'm quite lazy with my inputs. I don't use the tip of my thumb. I use the ball of my thumb, if that makes sense. And that tends to lead to me shortcutting inputs or being quite sloppy with them at times. I feel like if I got a misinput on this pad, it's more an execution thing on my behalf. It wasn't the controller itself, because where I was doing the inputs on both sides, where I was cleanly doing those motion inputs, they were coming out every time. Trying to cancel from DP into super as well, no issues with that. I was getting it every single time. Again, if I dropped that, it would be an issue on my behalf. It was either me getting used to the pad or just a sloppy input. So the functionality in terms of playing on these controllers, if you like a small form pad, then I feel this is a really good controller to try. I really recommend giving this a go if you like small control pads. So a very interesting and impressive controller. If you like small form factor in your fight pads, then this is definitely worth a look. Something like the 8-bit Do M30. If you like that pad, then I would recommend this controller. The fact that someone's gone out their way to design and build this themselves, it really puts a lot of the bigger brands to shame in terms of its functionality, its design, and the fact that you can map all the buttons as well. I love the fact that you can map all the buttons. The D-pad, it's different. Like I said, you get two different D-pads. The more traditional fight pad style D-pad is pretty good. It takes some adjustments, but I do like the way it feels in matches. I highly recommend that you give Banana Faction a follow on Twitter/X. He's put in so much hard work into these controllers. He's got a number of V2 controllers still in stock at the moment. So check him out, give him a follow, give him his support. Check out his online store if you are interested. And just keep your eyes peeled. I won't say too much, but definitely keep your eyes peeled on the future when it comes to what Banana Faction is doing. Hope that's helped. Any questions or queries, as always, give me a shout. Have you got one of these controllers? What do you think of the Fight Wedge Control Pad V2? I'm very impressed. Very impressed. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.